You're watching the Randy and Krista Show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is news that makes you healthier. Today, we have my dear friend, homeopath, labor doula, Willow Buckley. Randy, we're talking about how homeopathy can make you healthier and how you can use it instead of over-the-counter medications for acute situations and also for chronic issues.
All right. Now, Willow, you are her co-author for the book, which is...
How to Conceive Naturally. We spent 4 years together writing this book.
All right, good.
Nights and weekends.
Now, Will, for people who don't know you, your practice, I mean, who's your typical client that you see? And then the second thing is I want you to define homeopathy. And what it is. But tell us about your practice.
First, thanks for having me. And my practice really involves a wide range of clientele because I don't just treat the symptom, I'm treating the individual. So depending whether it's from morning sickness through pregnancy or chronic migraines, or if it's for children with chronic ear infections, or they just get a fever that mom and dad are worried about. So I have a wide range, and then I move into mental emotional symptoms as well. Some people come in with ADHD, with mild depression, with chronic anxiety.
And you see reversals?
Yes, I do.
Now, Krista saw you for a few things too, like insomnia was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, homeopathy can often work when nothing else works. And obviously, I'm a clinical nutritionist. I can run lab work. I spend a lot of time helping people sleep better. And I went through this period of insane insomnia about 5 years ago. Nothing I tried worked. No supplement. I would run labs, try to balance my hormones. Nothing was working. And so I saw Willow, and she treated me for constitutional treatment, which I'm really excited to have you talk about. And it was like a magic wand when she figured out the right remedy for me, the right plant-based remedy, that all of a sudden I was sleeping, not taking anything.
Nice.
I felt like a normal person. And, you know, anyone who struggles with insomnia, you know, when you're not sleeping and then you are, it's literally night and day. It's life-changing.
So your practice, Willow, is where?
Encinitas.
Encinitas, and people see you, they call you directly,
they usually call me directly or via Skype, so online as well. So I do see patients throughout the nation as
mostly
well.
Men and women? Or, I mean, I'm mostly women?
Probably mostly women. I do have a percentage of male clientele as well. I think a lot of women are more apt for seeking help, and then a lot of pregnancy, which is obviously women and their children as well. So the whole family.
So let's start with the definition, a working definition for this show of homeopathy. What is it, and how do we integrate it into our lives to feel better?
Yeah, so homeopathy is a dynamic medicine. So it really is a medicine that comes from all plants of nature, mineral kingdom as well, and animal kingdom. So it's substances in nature that would offer, in a healthy person, if taken, certain disease symptoms.
Like in supplement form?
Well,
like concentrated form?
In concentrated form, they would induce certain symptoms in a person. Like cutting an onion is going to create itchy and burning eyes and your nose to run. Well, if someone has hay fever with very similar symptoms, then the homeopathic remedy, Allium cepa, made from the onion, is going to rid that person of those hay fever symptoms.
It's like a vaccine, right?
It's like a vaccine, really?
That's the easiest way to relate to it, is you're giving them a little bit. I know you...
I don't like that correlation.
Talk about vaccines, but you're giving them a little bit, so therefore to create balance.
So I think people need to know that even in the drug companies, those drugs are being made from these same type of things. Some of them synthetic, but they all came from plants. They all came from the earth. So is that kind of what homeopathy is?
A little bit. It's more dynamic than that. I think when the drug companies, they're really looking at symptomology and umbrellaing a disease or an illness, and then if you fit in anywhere under that umbrella, they treat you with a certain drug. So homeopathy, so individualized, we take account the physical symptoms as well as the mental emotional sphere, and we're looking at the individual. So say you get the flu, or Krista gets the flu, or I get the flu, but we all kind of experience it a little differently, and it's those individual experiences that a homeopath, in my practice, I look for.
Is that what you're called, a homeopath?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good.
So it's really realizing, so we all have the same flu under a diagnosis, but we're going to experience that flu very differently.
You've been healed from this.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Very much. I was a strep throat kid growing up with tons of amoxicillin, lots of antibiotics, and of course I go and get my tonsils taken out. So then
Me too. I've had my tonsils out. We didn't know any better.
No, we didn't at all. And then I became a sinusitis kid. So adolescence was sinus infection after sinus infection. I was a Zithromax, those Z-Packs, popping them like, great, that's what you do when that happens. So it was really until homeopathy found me and I got constitutional treatment that
What does that mean, constitutional treatment?
Yeah, it's a great
Like
question.
whole body treatment?
Whole body treatment, and
Okay.
it's a much more thorough intake. So we're looking at the entire person. I might just look at not only the symptoms that are presenting now, but what they were like when they were a kid. Where does their sensitivity lie? What is their mental, emotional triggers or reactions to stress?
So that's the treatment you got. I interrupted. So
Yeah,
you
no,
had
that's
strep throat, you had sinusitis,
Right.
I guess 3-4 times a year.
Oh, more than
maybe?
that.
Okay. And it was something you're living with like everybody else, right?
And I just figure you
Okay.
take a Zithromax pack and that's what happens. That's just how you live.
Then you found somebody.
And then I started studying and went
Okay.
and saw my homeopath. And really, I haven't had maybe one sinus infection since. It's been 15, 16 years. And little did I realize how much more was going to be affected. My mental and emotional experience was greatly changed in such a positive way, as well as other little physical symptoms. My astigmatism vanished. My optometrist was
Okay.
floored. But the mental emotional, for me, I was the yes person. I never said no. I just kept going. And then I'd crash, and I would crash hard. I would crash so hard, I would want to stay in bed and not leave, hide under the covers. And you would almost see if someone was
Wow.
giving you those symptoms, I just didn't want to get out of bed. I needed self-care. That's what my body was telling me because I pushed so hard. And until I really got the treatment, I could let go of that and find more self-care where I was naturally choosing what was working for me, and I didn't have those same crashes, and I didn't have that same reaction to a crash. I embraced it and said, it's time to rest. I didn't have that self-deprecating association with it. It's really challenging to live like that.
It's really challenging. You burn brightly for short periods of time.
Definitely.
Right? And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And this is where homeopathy, it's so subtle, but yet it's so powerful because it's addressing the whole person, mind, body, spirit, and that shifts your experience of life. You think of how many children do you see with chronic ear infections that if they didn't see you, they would just keep getting ear infections, go down that traditional model, get tubes.
But do you see
right?
reversals? That means, are you unique? Are you the miracle story, or is that common?
With homeopathy?
Yes.
Oh, it's common. This is what happens all the time with homeopathy. We see reversals all the time with chronic issues of people suffering and rid them of those sufferings.
So they don't have to be.
They don't have to be.
So-
You don't have to be associated with pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life.
Okay.
The stories, Willow and I used to practice in the same office, and that's how we met. And story after story of children not needing their ADHD medication anymore, adults not needing to take acid blockers anymore. I mean, this is the type of stuff that's life-changing, life-reversing, getting people off of long-term pharmaceuticals, creating balance.
I had this one woman, and she was on ADHD medication for 15 years. And she came and saw me, and within a month and a half, she was off of it, completely off of the medication.
How come the mainstream news doesn't cover this, in your view? Is it, because it does sound hard to believe. It's like somebody should have a press conference and say, by the way, we could reverse these naturally.
It's a hard thing. I
Because
find
it's hard to believe? Is that what's going on?
I think it's hard to believe because it's also really cheap in comparison to pharmaceuticals and dependency. So when you bring the almighty dollar in, just like nutrition and a lot of these other things you speak about here, it's a challenge for the mainstream to accept it because we are told and we're taught that you take this pharmaceutical for this ailment and that's what's going to make you better, and that these alternative treatments aren't going to work, but really they do, but they circumvent pharmaceuticals. And a lot of people don't care for that.
But do you think that it's also a little esoteric and it might be hard for people to understand or wrap their brain around?
Yeah, I think so often what it is they want something that if I have this, then I take this for it. And homeopathy is much more involved in that. So we don't just look at, oh, you have a migraine, you take this. I want to understand everything about that migraine. When I have a client who had chronic migraines, they come in and I take a full intake. It's 2 to 3 hours.
I know.
And with those migraines, when they come in, each one of them, although they all suffer from migraines, each had a different experience of those migraines. And each one of them no longer suffers from migraines.
Think about how life-changing that is. When people live with chronic migraines and then they're gone, you enjoy playing with your kids. You enjoy creative endeavors that used to be, you lost your interest in them. Life is better all around. You have a completely different life. And to think that you can use something that's holistic and natural and subtle.
And it works.
And it works not just for that moment, like an over-the-counter, but it works constitutionally for the long term, where now migraines are a thing of the past. That's game-changing stuff.
But one of the things that you mentioned, Willow, is that they may come in just for migraines or come in just for their sinusitis or whatever, right? But then a bunch of other good things happen, like side effects.
Yeah, it's like
Elaborate
side
on
effects.
that.
So I have a client who came for endometriosis. And in the very beginning of treatment, what was she doing? She was sleeping through the night. She hadn't slept through the night for months, for years, really. And all of a sudden now she's sleeping. That's not what she came in for, but that's the very first sign of healing, is you start to see these layers, these onion layers kind of peel away of healing and health. And that's what we look for as well. So
and if you could get somebody to sleep, obviously they have more energy. We all know what it's like. If you don't sleep, the next day you're edgy. The next day you're not motivated. The next day you definitely don't want to start a business. You don't want to do anything, right?
And your body is not getting that time to recoup. So throughout sleep, we're also physically allowing ourselves to heal more.
Do all nutritionists consider what they're doing homeopathy, or some don't, some do? And you gave a working definition earlier, but is it combining supplements with food?
No, actually,
or is it
homeopathy,
herbal remedies?
It's so interesting. Homeopathy gets a blanket of holistic. So anything that's holistic or alternative, sometimes, I do homeopathic healing as well. But homeopathy is a systemized, dynamic medicine all on its own that uses homeopathic remedies, that is completely separate from all these other modalities. It has crossovers with herbology or crossovers with acupuncture, but it in itself is a complete, unique system of medicine.
It's its own field, separate from nutrition.
Now, Christa, I know you've wanted her on the show for a long time. So what are some of the topics you wanted to cover today? I want to make sure we hit those.
Well, but first I want to go into more of the acute uses for homeopathy. And then when we were writing the book, we work with a lot of women in pregnancy. They don't know what can they take, what can they not take. And so that's why Willow put together a homeopathy chart in how to conceive naturally. You know, what if you get a urinary tract infection? What if you have heartburn? What if you have constipation? You know, what can you do for it? But I also have to, the story's coming to my mind, speaking of using acute homeopathy, to use it to make surgery in conjunction with medicine, to make surgery go more gracefully. My mom, I think it was 6 years ago now, had breast cancer. And she had a mastectomy, and she was not a great candidate for surgery. Willow gave me a homeopathic protocol for surgery to help prep the body, to reduce swelling, to help recover afterwards. And it was such a smooth surgery. I was blown away by just giving her these little, they look like little sugar pills. And then when she had a surgery, maybe 5 years later, she had a different surgery for something else. It didn't go so well. She had a lot of complications. And I had wondered, gosh, I wish I was there to have given this homeopathic protocol for surgery. It could have gone differently. So in terms of the book, let's talk about homeopathy for preconception. How can it balance the hormones? We love talking about hormones on this show. And what can we do acutely?
Yeah,
So let's begin, I guess, with the early stages of pregnancy, or people that can't get pregnant. Which one would you like to talk about?
We can start with preconception, with fertility, sure. So with preconception, so often, just like the same idea, we're talking about getting off pharmaceuticals. A lot of people don't want to be pregnant, or shouldn't really get pregnant if they're on pharmaceuticals that aren't going to work while they're pregnant for the baby. So either they want to get off of it, or they shouldn't be on them, and that's one thing that homeopathy can work with. I have one client who was on severe, high doses amounts of acid blockers. Within 2 weeks of treatment, she was off the acid blockers, and she's been on them for years, and she hasn't been on them since. And she's now got a viable body that's rid of those pharmaceuticals to get pregnant now. In our book, we outline what homeopathy can be used for in terms of preconception.
But you outline like what they have to take?
You can't outline what they have to take because it's so individualized. I would have 1,000 pages.
So they kind of fill out a questionnaire?
No, it's understanding how to go about. They would need, that's a constitutional treatment, they'd need to find a homeopath. But for pregnancy, we outline in detail palatable charts for all the ailments that you might suffer in first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester. So each section of that book, you're going to find that ailment that you might experience, and you're going to go and have a beautiful outline of what the symptoms are and what homeopathic remedy is going to fit for you. And you can do a lot of self-care with homeopathy in those acute situations for pregnancy and avoid so many pharmaceuticals that sometimes are just being given out like candy, or even over the counters, that you'd really like to avoid while you're pregnant.
We have all these body follies, and women say, I don't know what to do. I'm experiencing this, I'm experiencing that. I'm afraid of what I can take and what I can do. And to think that you can use these vials, or, between $5 and $10, you can restock, for $50, you can restock your entire medicine cabinet and have this go-to guide to take care of these symptoms, to float through pregnancy much more gracefully than you would otherwise, save doctor's appointments. Not that we're against working in tandem with your doctor, but it's just another tool in your toolkit that makes life easier.
So morning sickness or back pain or constipation, all these things that might come up in pregnancy, you go to our book, you find that semester, you find that ailment, and it's going to be laid out for you in such an easy way for use, and you're going to be able to really thrive instead of suffer.
So what are the medications, or not even medications, but I guess over-the-counter medications that women are taking when they get pregnant? That they don't have to be.
So antacids.
Okay.
Sometimes.
So is that really that common? A lot of women are taking antacids?
Oh yeah, for the reflux or to help with any nausea or mild nausea.
So what's the problem with that though? That means, I mean, why shouldn't they take antacids? If it's making them feel better.
64 million Americans are struggling with heartburn. And so by basically consistently neutralizing stomach acid, you're just band-aiding the actual issue. Most women are not producing, most people that are having heartburn and acid reflux, they're actually not producing enough of their own hydrochloric acid. We don't want to go and neutralize it. We want to neutralize acidic poisons, which you can do with your diet, but then you want to create balance. Instead of you keep knocking down stomach acid over and over, just like an acid blocker, you're going to have some real issues down the line.
That's number one thing that they do that is a problem. Also, that prolongs digestion and everything else, so it's less energy toward the baby, more toward digesting food.
And they usually don't always work. I mean, so many of my clients, they'll come in and they're pregnant and they're like, I'm taking these all day long, but it's still out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, it's still like a 5. Okay, great, it went down to 5, but let's get it to 1. That's very uncomfortable to have those symptoms while you're pregnant.
I want to talk about, what are your top 3 homeopathic remedies that anyone watching can go to the store, pick up, keep in their medicine cabinet right now for overall health?
This is good.
Like where can we have, because this is news that makes you healthier. Practical application to theory, go out after the show, get these, use them, and why?
All right.
That's a challenge 3. It really should be about 100. Because they're small little kits. They don't take up a lot of space.
Can we throw arnica? I want to throw arnica in the room.
Arnica is one of them.
Arnica, okay.
Aconite is another one.
Okay, never heard of it.
Yeah, it's another plant.
Should I say that every time you say something I've never heard about this?
Arnica, aconite, and calendula.
Okay.
They're first aid remedies that can also contribute to a lot of other ailments that are happening. So calendula is another plant, and that is we call it nature's Neosporin. It's for everything involving with the skin, everything, whether it's cuts or rashes, anything. So if you have it, number one, like in here in the book we talk about in pregnancy or postpartum, even on baby, this is a safe thing you can use if you do get cuts or rashes or any kind of irritant. You can get in a cream, a tincture, or a pellet.
Nice.
So you can apply it topically, you can take it internally. It is completely
have that in the house.
Nature's Neosporin.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes. And then arnica, all things bruising, trauma of every single type. So bumps, bruises, anything that is soreness.
You topically put it on the bruises?
You can topically put it on, and you can also take it internally. It works both ways. I find in pregnancy, we outline in the book, so often as everything is widening and becoming a little bit looser down in the pelvic area, you can get a lot of muscle soreness. And so there's topical arnica that you can rub in, or you can take it orally, and it'll get rid of that soreness. I have a lot of moms who absolutely
Now, you offer these on both of your websites to purchase? Like arnica?
I'm pretty sure it is on mine, yeah.
Okay. Willow's site is balancingyourhealth.com, and she's got a homeopathy kit on there, kind of like your starter kit.
Okay, good.
It's the at-home kit.
Now, aconite is very interesting, and talk about what that is and what you would use it for.
Sure. So I love aconite. It's my other triad, I guess, for first aid and all things that are trauma, but in terms of mental emotional. So you just got in a car accident. You just heard bad news. You
feel shocked.
Are feeling shocked.
You have PTSD?
You have PTSD.
You gained 5 pounds over the weekend.
And you're just overblown.
You had a gluten binge.
Shoot the whole thing of aconite, the whole bottle. So a perfect example is I had a mom who went into labor at 32 weeks. That's 8 weeks before the average due date. 40 weeks is around what the average due date is. And her labor, her water broke, and it was within, I think, 2 to 3 hours, maybe 2 hours, she had this baby. That is extremely fast for the body and for your brain to wrap around. Not only for it to happen for labor, but for that to happen 8 weeks before you ever even thought it was going to happen. So giving her aconite, she calls it nature's Valium.
Like just
a dose of aconite right after birth.
It's calming?
In the hospital, it was like nature's Valium. Her whole body, she describes.
Really? What about a bedtime?
Settles. Bedtime, sometimes for insomnia, it's a great remedy depending, but there's a couple others that I like a little bit more for self-care.
Now, we are short on time, so what's
Okay.
another one or two?
So another two, and since we're talking about our book and pregnancy and we're all on that juicy female side, let's talk about Pulsatilla and Sepia. These are two amazing hormone balancing remedies. So if you have those throughout pregnancy, it's going to help with constipation, with morning sickness, with over-emotional, with nausea, exactly. And so these are two to have in your back pocket for a multitude of symptoms that might come up. Hemorrhoids, there's so many physicals, and then emotional ups and downs, overly emotional, that PMS type experience might be coming back or heightened. And that's
life-changing for everyone in the house.
What about avoiding miscarriages, things like that? I mean, is there any research done there? Can homeopathy help with that, or is there any
I have
with that?
a beautiful story. It's not my personal one, but it's of a fellow homeopath. And when she was pregnant, she had a threatened miscarriage. Heavy bleeding. She was in her second trimester, and it was not looking good at all. One homeopathic remedy. It was chamomilla that worked for her. It was a single dose. Gone. Everything stopped. That baby is still
Interesting.
full term and being raised on homeopathy. And now I think age 2.
It gives me chills. It makes me want to cry when you think that child would not exist in this world because of that. And last week, Randy, you were out. We had a fertility specialist on that I've teamed up with on cases. Willow and I have teamed up with on cases. Right? He's a doctor of Chinese medicine and a functional acupuncturist. And I had a client who found out she had a genetic mutation that was causing multiple miscarriages, now pregnant for the 4th time, afraid she would lose it, and she was getting ready to have a miscarriage. They found a large yolk sac. I think we had talked about that, which means she could miscarry any day. And he kind of banded together, and he came back from vacation early and made Chinese herbs for her to prevent miscarriage. And long story short, she just had that baby. It's 3 months old.
Very nice.
And you just think, wow, there's so many paths up the same mountain in this holistic field, and we can really join forces. That's what this show is about, is bridging, creating a bridge, right? Not a wall between traditional medicine and holistic medicine.
And this has been around for 10,000 years, right?
Just about.
A lot of this.
Not quite 10,000, but
and our medicine here has been around for a couple hundred years?
Less than that.
Okay. So this is...
We have a lot to learn from each other if we join forces. And, Willow teams up with medical doctors all the time, OBGYNs all the time. And I just think that that's a beautiful marriage. And she's really also a labor doula, where she'll help usher the process. So that's where we talk a lot about postpartum and homeopathy that you can use to balance the system after you have a child. And this is where the placenta encapsulation comes from. It was like weird science. I said, Willow, we're writing this book together. The next placenta that you encapsulate, I got to come over and do this with you.
Your big angel wing shirt.
I didn't wear the right outfit, all right? Because you have to, OSHA standards, you have to sterilize the kitchen and wear a hairnet, and you're having this organ that you're now dehydrating and encapsulating, balancing the hormones at 10 times the speed. It's just so fascinating, all the tools we have.
Now, we're out of time. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for
If somebody wants to hire you, do they have to see you face-to-face? Do you do Skype stuff?
I do Skype, and I do 15-minute free consults just to see if it's the right fit.
Okay, so people with arthritis, people with irritable bowel, people with depression, anxiety, ADHD, whatever,
chronic,
they can work with you as a nutritionist, as a
homeopath, and then I do dive into nutrition for lifestyle and food. And acutes too. My kid's got an ear infection. Call me up. I have acute consults as well. So it's like going to see your pediatrician, or say you get a diagnosis. You can come in, see me.
It's very nice. Krista, final message, final word.
Final message, give it a try. We've got aconite, we've got arnica, and we've got calendula. That's your homework until the next show, is to go pick up those 3 remedies, and you know exactly how to use them.
You believe in these, right?
I believe in these.
Now, how come you've never told me I need to take these? Krista, am I too far gone?
I think so.
Because you don't think she doesn't think I'm going to listen to her advice.
I don't know.
I'll start taking those, I guess.
Okay,
or
maybe
should
we need
or
more
do I have to
regular
have symptoms
meetings.
to take these? Are these?
I think a constitutional consultation with Willow, that would be fascinating, and we can start there.
Fascinating for you, or fascinating for
If we go in, we'll need an hour of our consult.
3
I'll be
hours.
talking about Christa about what she's, all the negativity of eating wrong and drinking out
All
of
the
plastic
triggers.
bottles,
All the
and
triggers.
everything else. I can't have fun in my life. So no, I'm kidding around. She's great. So thank you for coming on the
Thank
program.
you so much for having
You've
me.
been watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez, Christa Orecchio.
I'm Christa Orecchio. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
It's news that makes you healthier. We'll see you soon.